common sense, clear stuff. Schools are okay. So what are the consequences when you don't have face-to-face learning? Something we've talked about a lot here. FAMS is a group, which is a children's welfare advocacy group. I want to get that nice and clear. Julie Ruse is from that group. She's their CEO, and Julie joins us now. Julie, thank you for the chat. Julie, what happens when kids don't have face-to-face learning? Who are the kids who end up falling through the cracks?
Hi, Paul. Look, we know that the kids who end up falling through the cracks are the kids who need the most support. We learned through the great unplanned experiment in 2020 when we went into online learning the first time that the kids who were most at risk and who needed the most support were the kids who stopped coming to school first. And if we're going to do all we can to keep kids safe and keep them thriving, we need to have them connected. They've got to be at school, they've got to be at sport, they've got to be going about the business of being kids, and that means not being locked down.
So it's this thing where some people will be sitting at home saying, come on, it's only 4 days. The whole point is that this has happened for a long period of time before, and I believe National Cabinet should have a clear standard that kids and school are unaffected by lockdowns, because remember this story from last year. Thousands of kids in New South Wales never went back to school. They never went back to school after those breaks. Now, those numbers, I hope, have got better, but that's what we're talking about here. It's fine for everyone in the middle class or the upper middle class, but when government is equally saying everyone must stay home because of this safety reason and that safety reason, why would they make a decision that screws over the poorest amongst us?
It absolutely screws over the poorest of the kids. It screws over families with a lot of kids. If you've got two parents who are working at home and you've got 3 kids, there are so many households that don't have 5 devices. So not everybody can be online learning and working at the same time. It just doesn't make sense. We know last year it took weeks, if not months, to get devices and internet technology into the homes of the kids and the families that needed it most, and so many kids missed out. And there was thousands of kids who didn't go back to school last year, and we will never know how many kids are actually lost to the system until they turn up in our welfare systems and our other statutory systems in 5 or 10 years' time. It's an absolute lost opportunity that we haven't spent the best of the months that we had at the end of last year and early this year, making sure that we were bridging that digital divide. There was always a risk that we were going to have another wave and that we needed to be digitally ready to be able to make these rapid transitions. And we just didn't take advantage of that. We don't have kids and families that have got access to the tech, they don't have access to the technology, and they don't have access to the support to be able to flick this switch and be ready to go back to school in a couple of days' time.
And what makes my blood boil even more on all of this is that you never know what the story is that's going to break the emotional camel's back when it comes to a kid, right? You don't know whether it's going to be a particular fight between mum and dad, whether it's going to be a particular trauma, something that they missed out on. And again, I love these people who say, well, if you're an essential person, you know, they're not going to turn a kid away. They're not going to... Oh, so what a wonderful thing to do, which is to not only feel like you're behind the 8 ball because you don't have the tech as everyone else, but then you have to go to school because you don't have the tech, which underlines the status that you have as a kid, and you will become immediately aware of that status when all the other kids come back. What a stupid thing to do to kids.
It is. It's absolutely entrenching, stigmatising kids that we don't want. And if we think back to the good old days where New South Wales was, operating at 100% in 2019, even then, frontline government caseworkers and frontline services could only get to 30% of the kids who were substantiated by the department at risk of significant harm. Even when we are operating at full pace, we have tens of thousands of kids that don't get the support that they need. So it just compounds the risk that these kids are at. We know during lockdown, all of the evidence points to online gambling increases, domestic violence increases, and we know that adults are at risk. We continue to have kids who don't have the agency because they're not old enough to be able to defend themselves, to get themselves the help they need. We hear about mental health outcomes for our young people being at all-time lows, and yet we don't put the structures and the infrastructure in place to support these kids. Teachers, it's not can, but they can't keep switching and changing their learning plans overnight to be able to respond to these rapid-fire policy changes that are happening on a daily basis.
Yeah, I genuinely think the decision about schools is wicked. I truly, truly believe that.